gotten flagged. He
would have gotten flagged there. And then what's BYU looking at that point? I know it came down to a Hail Mary where they completed on like the 4-yard line.
Yeah.
But you've got like a legitimate shot in that situation.
Yeah, get them 30 extra yards, you can run a play.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is no mechanism now. That could change in the offseason. Because what we're doing for rushing the field is not working, by the way.
Yeah.
There are more field rushes now than there ever have been, and the fines are bigger than they've ever been. That is not discouraging the field rushing.
Yeah, all we've done, we've made it a cool thing to do.
It's become an Instagram moment.
Yeah, no matter what the time is, and it's not going to go away. I wish Kalen DeBoer in Oklahoma rushed too early. I wish Kalen would have just walked across and said,
one of my favorite time of the week. It is Unlocked with Fox's Brock Huard, brought to you by MyBookie.ag. Double that initial deposit. Use the code word next round, all caps, one word, and they will double your initial deposit. Football season in full effect. So is winning season with our friends at MyBookie.ag. He is fresh from Lawrence, Kansas, where I heard that there was a Australian punter who brings his family in to watch him punt against Colorado, and he never punted.
I think that is true. Yeah, actually, more time in Kansas City on this trip, Lance, than actually Lawrence. We went over there
yeah. I forgot about the renovations to Memorial.
No. Details matter.
Yep,
No worries about it. I mean, I was in Missouri more than I was in Kansas. That new stadium, by the way, in Lawrence, going to be pretty cool. So it'll be completed by August. They renovated about 70% of it, and then they'll do the other side after the following season, they hope. And man, what a win for Lance. What a 3 weeks for Leipold and Kansas. Just been the Grim Reaper of the Big 12, as Joel Klatt told you guys the week before. And I knew that would be the most difficult matchup for Colorado, remaining in the Big 12. Like any team they could play, in the Big 12 title game, and now that's a long shot to get there. Anything else like that Kansas team with that running back, that scheme, that style was going to be their toughest fight, and they definitely took a big old slice of humble pie there in Arrowhead Stadium Saturday.
Yeah, so credit to you and your crew, Benetti and Allison Williams. We were talking about you on the show because I think everybody's a big fan of that crew. Benetti, one of those really underrated guys. I know you've been a huge fan for a long time, but Ryan Brown, who sits typically right here to my right, to your left, and myself, we both had that was the primary game. Like I kept it on the TV, or I kept it on the main TV volume the whole time. I was just so fascinated with Colorado, such an improved defense. But this Kansas team, this is the Kansas team I thought we would see in September. Now that they have beaten Iowa State, BYU, and now Colorado, and their offense was incredible. And you mentioned Devin Neal. He was off the charts, the chesty lion that he is.
Yeah. You like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I dropped that on Monday with you, and I had to make sure I got that in the broadcast when he ran right through Silman Craig for about the third time with his chest. He said it with his chest. And yeah, man, if they were playing right now, like a Big East tournament, right? And you seeded everybody in the conference 1 through 16, and they played a tournament of that style, Kansas may win the whole thing.
I agree.
I mean, they're that good on the back end. They're pretty limited up front defensively. They play really hard. When they face a good run team, they can get run on significantly. So I don't know for sure, but man, the way that the Lions playing, the confidence that the QB's playing with, Devin Neal in the year of the running back, add him to a list of, 10 or 12 guys that have just been awesome this year, Lance. And I'll get to see another one this week. So we have the Territorial Cup, Arizona State, ASU, total control of their destiny. They could be the number 1 seed in the Big 12 title game. And their little running back, Cam Scatterbo, not little, that dude's an absolute monster as well. So yeah, that was not surprising to me. I don't know if you bet that game or not. How did your weekend go?
Yeah, no. So we had a winning weekend. We hit our big plays. Kansas was one of our top 3 plays. I told everybody, if you play one game on the day slate, play Kansas. One game at night, play Auburn. So we had a good Saturday. Yesterday we were 2-3. It came down to the Rams, and I'm watching Saquon Barkley on one of our TVs. He continues to run right now. We'll get to him on the second half of this show. But I wanted to one more point on Colorado. Travis Hunter, he is the best player in college football. And I think even with a loss, not a humble brag, but I am a Heisman voter, I still think, a 3-loss team right now at 8-3, I don't know how you don't vote. As good as Genty is, as good as Cam Ward has been, I mean, Travis Hunter is just, he's another level.
Well, what if Genty runs for 250 and he's been beat up and he's playing through injury? But what if he runs? Oregon State's really, really bad in their front. What if Genty this weekend runs for 250 and then Benetti and Allison and myself will be in Boise for the Mountain West Championship game, which will be in Boise. They clinch that. And what if, I don't know, against UNLV, who's pretty salty, it's probably going to be a rematch with UNLV. Colorado State's going to need some help. But what if he runs for another 200 then? What if he puts another 450 yards on the ground and Boise State goes 12-1 and is the number 4 seed? I mean, he's got to be in consideration.
Oh, there's no doubt. Again, I think those are the guys at the top of the list, those 3 guys. But just watching Travis Hunter, I mean, nobody throws his direction. And obviously Kansas didn't need to. I mean, they were gashing. I mean, they were 3rd and 8s and they're still running the football. And you guys pointed that out on the broadcast. But typically you just don't see him in the box score because nobody's challenging him defensively. And then what he can do offensively is off the charts.
I too am a Heisman voter, and I will, and we all define it differently. Sometimes it is just our eyes, and you're right. I've seen Travis 4 times. What is most superhuman about him is his endurance, and I think Jason made that point during the broadcast. Is plenty of receivers as skilled as he is. There's plenty of DBs as skilled as he is, but to be able to do both and never miss a beat is truly Ohtani-esque. I mean, it's just remarkable. I was at practice there, Lance, last Wednesday. I had to see how the sausage was made. I needed to watch him practice, and not just him. I needed to see all of Colorado to see if this was like the real deal. And as I said during the broadcast, it was. I mean, it was buttoned up. Dion made a funny point in our production meeting. He said, man, Travis, that's the most he's practiced all year. He must have seen the Fox crew out there wanting to put on a show. Because in Wednesday's practice, the one day a week he really goes at it. I mean, it was ridiculous. I mean, it was an hour straight of him never, ever stopping, never the bounce that he has in his step. But I do think this, take Ashton Genty away from Boise State, there is no way they're 12-1. There's no way. Take Travis Hunter off Colorado, they're not 8-3, but are they 6-5, 7-4? I think so. I think they've got that kind of depth at receiver. I think the Auburn transfer DB is a really good player. Hood got 2 picks this year as well. Now the story is that good, and he is that elite. And if I had to cast my vote today, I think I'm right there with you. You're casting that vote for Travis Hunter, and I still think the odds tell you that he's going to win this thing. But what Ashton Genty has done there at Boise is like what Marshall Faulk did at San Diego State. He's that kind of player to me, that kind of difference maker. And I don't want him to be X'd out of this conversation.
Alabama. There's so many layers to this game. And look, you are a Kalen DeBoer guy. I'm a Kalen DeBoer guy. I've been getting killed since Saturday night. I can't believe you endorse this guy. You campaign for this guy to be the head coach at Alabama. They're 8-3. That was a devastating loss. And more so, it wasn't like a fluke. Oklahoma beat them into submission. They ran all over them. 49 carries, 260 yards. Jackson Arnold, they brought it up on the broadcast. I'm sure you got to see a lot of it. But Kirk and Chris were like, he's got good footwork because he was a former running back in Pop Warner. Well, he was a legitimate running back against this Alabama defense that seemed like they had turned the corner. Alabama, in one night, they don't deserve to be in the college football playoff. I thought going into the game, they might be the most dangerous team in college football. Let's start with this angle. Jalen Milroe, coming into this game, to me, was the most dangerous quarterback in college football. I don't understand how you can play at a level like he did against Georgia, like he did against LSU, and then play down like he did against Tennessee, and even worse against Oklahoma on Saturday night. Yeah. How does that happen?
Yeah. Well, I am going to use the word confidence. We came off of a conversation with Mike McDonald this morning. Is Salk and I do every morning on our show.
By the way, congratulations to your Seahawks. Had them minus the 1 yesterday. Nice pick six from Kyler Murray. Really helped us out there.
Yep. Defense played great yesterday. And about 2 or 3 times in our conversation, Mike brought up confidence with different players. Confidence with Kobe Bryant, who had that pick six, and confidence with Abe Lucas. And And by the end of the interview, I said, you know what, Mike, for all these years of being on the college football trail, 18 or 19 years, whatever it's been, when I hear a coach repeat themselves, I know that that is like front of mind. And you have said confidence 3 or 4 times today on our show. And I think most of our listeners hear that and are like, really? NFL players still struggling with confidence? These are pros. These are grown men. These are men that have played this game for decades. Like they still struggle with confidence, or confidence is still a big deal? And he said, absolutely it is. And it's my job and the coach's job to instill that, to build that into them. And Lance, that's all I can say. When I watch Jalen through these ups and downs this year, when I watch Alabama through these ups and downs this year, is I don't want to say a crisis in confidence, but there is not that confidence that you felt the last 2 years on Montlake. You know, there just isn't. Even in the first year there with Kalen DeBoer, and I think they won 10-3 the first year. Almost every single time out, you just felt an air of confidence. Last year, as they went through that gauntlet, as they went 14-0, and even into the second half against Michigan, I never ever felt like, ooh, this team is struggling with confidence. Yeah, Penix is shaky. Yeah, this offense is shaky. Like at every turn, there was just this conviction and just this confidence. And it was Kalen's poise and demeanor. He really, rarely ever lost any control on the sidelines. And I think you would, as you've watched every one of these plays, I think you would attest to the same. Like this is not the same confidence carried through with this Alabama team. And whether it was Vanderbilt or obviously the debacle in Norman, certainly shaken and amid in those two matchups, a bit of a crisis of confidence, no question.
Well, look, I think I've been a little hard on Jalen Milroe today, but I do want to bring this back up because I think he's a great kid. And, you know, he's had some struggles in the past, and he's been open about some mental health stuff. And, you know, I think he's a really, really good kid. With all that said, what really got me is Alabama's down 17-3. He throws the pick in the third quarter to Kip Lewis, and he doesn't even try to tackle the guy. Like he had an angle on him. He basically just gave up on the play. And obviously at that point, you know, points are at a premium. And you've got to find a way to make that tackle, and there was just no effort. So, you know, if you're one of his teammates, you see this. I just don't know what to take away from that. Is that more of a reflection on something that is going on bigger inside of the program? Is it something that's going on with Jalen Milroe trying to maybe protect himself, for his draft status, which to me that actually takes points away. But what did you take away from that, just that one moment?
Walk me through that one. I think I was getting on the plane or
so 17-3 there.
Yeah. I got. I remember watching it, and I saw the highlight and I saw the play. I felt like he dove for him. Did he not?
He did
dive
not.
For him?
Nope, not at all.
He did.
No effort.
Oh, he didn't. Okay.
Yeah, literally 11 and a half minutes left. Throws the pick. He's got an angle. I mean, he can make a play. Whether or not he makes a tackle, I don't know. But just basically let him go.
Yeah, you can't do that. I mean, that is.
And Kalen DeBoer was asked about it today, and you could tell in his answer he was really frustrated with Jalen Milroe.
Kalen was asked about it and was super frustrated?
Yep.
Yeah, that just can't. That's like tapping out. Like you just can't. You can't do that. That's like Anthony Richardson. It's not as bad as Anthony Richardson, right? A few weeks ago, being tired and tapping out. And I think the whole football community just about vomited on themselves, and every old offensive lineman living and those dead even rolled in their grave. Like that can't ever happen. This is not quite to that sin level, but it's pretty close, man. You're down 17-3. You threw a horrendous pick earlier, and then you throw an even worse one on this one that's being returned, and you better play with your hair on fire. You better go hit that guy into the stands, right? You better go be the linebacker at Fast Times at Ridgemont High and just rip that guy apart.
Jefferson.
Your teammates better see that. Jefferson, that's right. Your teammates better see that kind of effort, and instead you kind of turn tail. That's really really bad.
Okay, so
that's really hard.
What do you pull from this with Kalen DeBoer? Look, he's a great coach. I mean, I hate to even say this out loud. I mean, sometimes certain people aren't certain fits at certain places. I don't think that's the case. I think he can still win a championship one day at Alabama. It's a bad look when you're a double-digit favorite and you go into Norman, where a team that was really struggling, especially offensively, and they just completely whip you up front. For the Alabama fans that are like, Kalen DeBoer is not the right guy for this program, what would you tell them today?
I would say, how is your recruiting class going? I think it's going pretty good, right?
It's going pretty good. Now, they have had a couple of flips, but everybody's had flips, and we know now a commitment really is nothing in today's NIL world. But, yeah, I mean, overall, it's going really well. They're a top 5 class.
Yeah, exactly. If they were not in the top 5, and that was one of the critiques at Washington, frankly, Lance, was that the recruiting at the high school level was not very good. Obviously, the portal was super successful. The development of the talent that Chris Peterson and crew had brought there was off the charts. So the fact that you've got a top 5 class, you've been able to sell that. I do think a bunch of this, for him especially, I'm sure, and I haven't talked to him, but if and when I do after the season, it is really reaching Jalen to just be that consistent rock that you have got to be. That quarterback at Alabama is the tip of the spear, and you are following the A.J. McCarrons and the Bryce Youngs and the Tuas and right, and the great players that you have had there, and I've left out some, Mac Jones even. Like, you're the tip of the spear. You have to. It has to be head coach and quarterback there. And Nick did it. I mean, Nick did it remarkably. I was just talking actually to my wife yesterday in the car, Lance. I don't know how we got into this conversation, but we were chatting after church, and I said, the most remarkable thing that Pete Carroll always marveled at with Nick Saban, he would say this to us in our Monday interviews, and many times, Pete was such still avid fan of college football, watching SC and watching Bama and watching all those teams he competed against. He always marveled at Saban's ability to get the hiring process right. How does he do this time after time after time? He just gets it right. And it was all sorts of it. It was Mike Loxley, and it was Dable, and it was Sirk, and it was Lane, and the same thing defensively with Kirby and Pruitt. He just nailed it. And that will be the one thing I will be curious about with Nick Sheridan, right? We were talking all about Kalen DeBoer. Who's the play caller? Has he come under that same fire, or has it all been just Kalen?
It's so weird, Brock, because seeing the coach's booth empty out in Baton Rouge and Nick Sheridan and that entire staff down celebrating with minutes left, something you never see. And it really, that's what's so baffling to me. Like, they had turned the corner. I really thought that maybe they were the best team in college football. And this leads me to this question. Like, all they got to do is win there. All Ole Miss had to do was beat Florida, and both of these teams are in the college football playoff. What was the worst, more embarrassing loss? Ole Miss trying to get to their first ever college football playoff, losing that game to what has become a good, hungry Florida team, or Alabama getting beat by 21 in Norman?
Alabama, there's not a question to me. Like, Jackson Dart really struggled. It was impressive, how much he owned that after the game. You don't see that an awful lot. But, you can't go to Oklahoma and get embarrassed in that kind of way. It's been a largely one-dimensional team, right? This has not been, and Billy Napier has risen like Lazarus from the dead. His guys have bought in. They've played some really good football. They've had some quality wins. Yeah, to me, if you're Alabama, that can happen. And by the way, I really like Nick Sheridan. I did some of his games at Indiana. I thought he was a straight-up guy. He went to UW and kind of took a back seat to be the tight end coach and to learn further under Kalen and Ryan Grubb and grow and develop. But there's some scar tissue there, I think, with him in the past as a play caller. And, I'm kind of surprised that I've not seen at least a little bit of the conversation on Kane Womack and his group that has been like this. And I love Kane too. But, the head coach can only do so much. The head coach is, the head coach, and he's got to coach those coaches. But for Kalen in that new environment, he's being bombarded with things he's never encountered in his life as a head coach. And it really is incumbent upon those coordinators to elevate. And Ryan Grubb was so good. And, I don't want to put this into play yet, but is it without possibility if Ryan Grubb, struggles here? Because the Seahawks have been great defensively. offensively, Gino's got 12 touchdowns. He got 12 picks. Can't run the ball at all. Ran for 2 yards carry yesterday. Totally overwhelmed offensively. It took a pick six to really win that game. And I'll be kind of curious to watch these next 6 weeks with Ryan Grubb there. And I've heard no rumors, no
Interesting.
innuendo. That's totally my own speculation.
Well, that's a rumor now.
But if I'm an Alabama fan, I'm kind of keeping an eye on that situation too, because Grubb and DeBoer, that run that they went on together at a number of different places was a pretty darn special run.
It is Unlocked with Fox's Brock Huard. It is brought to you by our title sponsor, MyBookie.ag. Double that initial deposit. When you put in that code next round, that's simple. Sides, totals, player props, you can get it all at MyBookie.ag. So the biggest game coming into the weekend on your network, the Fox Big Noon kickoff with Ohio State hosting Indiana. Indiana goes right down, goes up 7-0, and I'm like, whoa. I thought it was going to be an extremely tight game because I thought Indiana would be able to get after Will Howard. It was flipped around. Curtis Rourke was running for his life. They gave up, 5 sacks. They only had 151 total yards. But if you take away special teams, and you can't, the Caleb Downs punt return, and then obviously the drop by the punter there that ends up a touchdown for Ohio State, this game was closer than it looked. What did you take away from the Buckeyes' win over the Hoosiers?
I would agree with that. I continue to take away that Jim Knowles is a phenomenal defensive
That defense
coordinator.
is crazy good.
Yeah, and he's had some crazy good defenses at Duke, at Oklahoma State, and you kind of knew, give him more. He's always had to do more with less, and now he's got more with more from an athleticism standpoint, and Simon and the edge guys, and just at every level of it. They're a little handsy out on the perimeter. But Jim Knowles is just an absolutely, again, back to our conversation of coordinators and how important they are. Chip Kelly obviously is taking some of the pressure off of Ryan Day. Ryan gets a top 5 win and everything else. And I don't leave that game going, oh, Indiana's way overrated. Indiana shouldn't even be a top 20 team. Indiana's really good. and how they've dismantled everybody this season is super impressive. To your point, once they kind of got hit in the mouth and felt the force of the horseshoe, and then they make a mistake, and then there's a special teams mistake, and all of a sudden, you're going uphill, no chance. If they could have kept that game a little more level, if Rourke is maybe 100%, I think that thumb is not 100%. If there's a play here, a play there, we're having a different conversation. It's going to be much more contested into the second half than it ended up being.
Do you think Indiana can be a factor once we get to the postseason?
Yes. Yeah, I think the QB's got to get healthy. I think that is a learning lesson kind of game. One of those that you do need to feel, right? It's kind of like get into a fight, or getting into a wrestling match. And I remember I was goofing around with one of my neighbors growing up, and he was like an all-state wrestler, but he was littler. He was like 135 pounds.
You don't want to mess with those guys. Leverage too much.
No. Oh, no. That was a big mistake by yours truly. I got into that thing. I'm like, big mistake. Okay, you got me, Travis. I'm out. All right. But you have to feel that. And I think for Indiana, they have not felt that level of size and strength and speed in that environment, man. The horseshoe, when it gets going, it is as loud and as is just intimidating as any venue in all of college or professional football. And it was ready for that one. I mean, they wanted to cook that sucker up, and they got it going full throat, and it played a big role in that win.
Because I brought up the Jalen Milroe, I want to bring this up because it's something that kind of annoyed me, and I don't know where you are on this, but, late in the game, Ohio State, Travion Henderson breaks one up the middle. And I don't know if you saw this, but he drops at the 1.
I did.
And when he dropped at the 1, to me, that signaled, let's call the dogs off. And Cignetti didn't take a timeout, and we know why he didn't, because he didn't want him to punch it in again because he wanted the margin of victory to look a little differently. But Ohio State, without him calling timeouts, decided to run it up. I know Cignetti has run. He's rubbed a lot of people the wrong way with some of these comments and Google me and stuff like that. But to me, with Travion dropping where he could have had an easy touchdown, and Cignetti not taking timeouts, don't you take a knee at that point?
I would, yeah. I think you do. But I think Ryan Day's got a little honey badger to him. Don't think he really cares. And with as much noise, right, that he's had to deal with and all of that, he can't win a big one. He can't do this. He can't do that. I think that was just a little reminder maybe to the opponent across the way, like, I don't care, And really, to your point, you're doing the right thing now, or you're not taking your timeouts. But I'm gonna put some more on you and remind you that we still are the Ohio State and you are still Indiana. And wouldn't it be fun, man? Maybe if they could match up in the playoff here down the road and in a couple weeks, something that never would have happened in the past, right? Indiana would have been done, and you get one loss. Certainly with a 14 playoff, you're out. They take care of business in the finale. They get to the playoff. That might come up again.
Okay, one more game before I get to what's going to happen Week 14 rivalry weekend, and that's Penn State going to Minneapolis. I called it a couple of weeks ago. I was like, everybody thinks Penn State is booked into the college football playoff. I think this is going to be a really difficult game because Minnesota plays outstanding defense. You've got a running back in Darius Taylor that can actually control the clock. And you've got a quarterback, which blows me away because you had him week 1 against North Carolina and Max Brosmer, who's really grown as far as not making mistakes. He had the current active streak, I forgot, 200-plus passes without an interception. Turned it over twice, but Minnesota still had every opportunity. I didn't mind P.J. Fleck kicking the field goal, with 6 minutes to go, just based on how the defense was playing. And they got them in not 1, not 2, but 3 fourth-down situations. Yep. I could not believe James Franklin pulled the fake punt there.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I mean, with everything going, right? Because if you lose that game, are you still making the playoff as a 2-loss team?
Now, yes. But before, when that game was going on, Brock,
correct.
Yeah,
you don't know
in the moment, I thought with a loss, they were going to be out because, I thought ultimately Ole Miss would win. I thought Alabama would win. But at that point, that could have been them on the outside of the playoff.
Yeah. I mean, I think that comes back to a little bit what I said earlier and a little bit of what Mike McDonald, again, reinforced this morning. Like, the job of the coach and the coaching staff is to instill confidence. And I think many times, and it certainly against Ohio State and some of those moments for Penn State, it has been a struggle to really match the confidence of that foe, to really believe. You say it, you hope it, but do you really believe you're going to do it? And then their play caller, Koldenicki, and I know that was not, the offense in that fake punt, but Koldenicki, I think, was brought in for that same reason. Frankly, I think Matt Rule brought Dana Holgorsen in for that same reason to Nebraska. Like, hey, man, we're just not going to play timid. We're just not going to play, scared and scared to make a mistake. Like, we are going to let it rip and we're going to cut it loose. And if it takes Dana Holgorsen to end this bull drought, and he's got to come in here as unconventional as it is and as hard as it is on our buddy Sat that got demoted, like, this is what I'm going to do. And as unconventional as it is on a 4th down in Minnesota with everything on the line, I'm going to go for it. Kind of reminds me last year, Lance, of the Apple Cup, right? Rivalry weekend last year, where UW had a 4th down at their own 28-yard line. 4th down. And Kalen DeBoer could feel the momentum and did not want to punt it and give Cam Ward the chance to march it down and the Cougs to win it with no time left. Said, screw that. 4th down and 1. I'm going to trust my guys. I'm going to trust Roma Dunze and Michael Penix and Ryan Grubb to make the call. And it makes one of the boldest, gutsiest, ballsiest calls that I've ever been in the booth to see an end around on a 4th and 1 or 4th and 2. But it sealed the game and won. And it made a statement to that team like, we got this. And I totally believe in you. And I think you're seeing that here in a few different spots at the end of the college football season.
Okay, so Week 13 was maybe the most enjoyable college football weekend I've had in 2024. With that said, it ripped away Week 14 rivalry week for me. And by that, I mean, I go back to July, and I said this a million times, Brock. I was like, there's going to be so many 2-loss teams that Week 14 is going to be teams playing their way in and teams playing their way out. And now when I look at this schedule, we don't have that. We don't have that excitement. And look, we got it in Week 13, but I think it kind of kills what's going on here in Week 14 because you point out a game that is really important. I know the Big 12, we'll take them to the side because I do want to ask you, because this is like one of the more difficult word problems of all time, you explaining how 9 different teams could possibly get to the Big 12 championship. But I'm just talking about regular games out there. I don't even know where to start. Like Texas A&M, very important game because the winner goes to the SEC championship. But if A&M loses, they're out. Their season's over. There's other examples. I just thought it was going to be chaos.
Michigan, Ohio State,
Yeah.
and absolutely loses some of that steam. I would say again, the Big 12 is going to have a few of them. Arizona State is going to be an absolute madhouse to see if, especially off of what they did. But no, I think that is a fair point. And who would have thought that both Alabama and Ole Miss would have stubbed their toes in places they did against opponents that were certainly good and playing some good ball and have some parts to their team in Florida and Oklahoma that can be awfully dangerous, but to just not play your best when it matters, to not be on the details and on point, and for Jackson to struggle the way he did, and for Jalen to struggle the way he did, and yeah, I do also wonder, Lance, that if as good a job as the SEC has done, and Greg Sankey, and following in the footsteps of the previous commissioner, that to really set up for success in the 8 conference games and playing a Mercer and playing, a nobody in November has benefited them over the years. I do wonder in this 12-team playoff if there's going to be some rethinking that process. That, maybe stepping off the gas back in the day with a 14 playoff or whatever was one thing, but to step off the gas and to lose some focus, and I don't know. I'm kind of curious to see if you want to play that game, and you still want 8 conference games, and play it in September. But you want to be sharp, man. You want to be on your best. You want to iron sharpens iron all the way through, and to kind of step off the gas. And I'm speaking to Alabama, I guess, more in this one, but to kind of step off the gas and have to re-step on it. They did not look like a team that was ready for that moment in Norman.
Big 12 is impossible to figure out. Very entertaining. We saw Kenny Dillingham's meltdown with a second left on the clock against BYU. Iowa State was able to survive Utah on a fifth-string quarterback. Colorado obviously gets gashed by Kansas. Now there are 9 teams that possibly could play in this Big 12 championship game. Is there a way you can give us the Cliff Notes version of how this thing plays out?
Yeah, I mean, it's really Iowa State and Arizona State that control the destiny. Like if they win, they're going to be in. So it's going to be those two. If ASU can go to Arizona and they're favored, I don't know by what, touchdown or more, they control their destiny. BYU is going to Houston at home. I would be shocked if they lose that game. Houston is so feeble at times offensively, especially out on the road. So I think BYU takes care of business. K-State going to Iowa State, that is an absolute, coin toss.
Yep.
And K-State could absolutely go in there if Avery Johnson and plays and hits and is accurate, and he's not been terrific on the road either. So if Iowa State wins and Arizona State wins, I think you're going to see those two in the Big 12 title game. It will take a lot of help for the others. Colorado needs 2 of those 3 to lose, and then all the 3 lost teams need a whole bunch of chaos. So I think it really comes down to that Iowa State K-State game. Think BYU wins, takes care of business. We'll be waiting there in case either Iowa State or ASU stumble.
I'm going to ask this question, although we just saw Oklahoma run Alabama off the field and Florida beat Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
But is there a team in the Big 12 that can make any noise in the postseason? Not to crap on your Arizona State-Arizona Territorial Cup game this weekend, but when I watch the Big 12, I just don't see a team that can make any noise in the postseason.
No, I would think maybe BYU, depending on who they matched up with, but they've just kind of been humbled, and I don't know if they're a little bit worn down. They still do a lot of things. I think statistically or metrically that they're probably the least flawed of those, as we saw with Colorado. They can't run the ball at all. And that defense, who's lost some people in their front, just kind of ran out of gas. Iowa State is just not explosive. It's just such a grind for them. They just, from a team speed standpoint, now that 3 down and that defense can be a little salty and a little bit difficult if you don't see it a lot to deal with. So maybe somebody out of conference is like, what is this? Because it is a little bit unconventional and unorthodox, and they play it, really, really well. But yeah, it's going to be hard. I was just looking at ASU's numbers, Lance, and there's not, other than Scatterbo just carrying it, and they're 6-1 in one possession games. Their numbers are really troubling across the board in a lot of spots. So yeah, hard pressed against an Ohio State, an Oregon, a Texas, Georgia, to think that they could really go toe-to-toe with them.
It is Unlocked with Fox's Brock Huard. We do it every single week. It is brought to you by our friends at mybookie.ag. Sides, player props, totals. They've got it all available right now. Very important. They will double your initial deposit when you use that code word next round at mybookie.ag. As we shift to week 13, or week 12, I should say, of the NFL slate. A running back should be the MVP, but will he? We will get to that on the other side with Fox's Brock Huard right here on Unlocked.
Everything Next Round is on demand now in the podcast section at nextroundlive.com.
Let's face it, a home is one of the most powerful assets you can have, and our friends at Mortgage Right want to help you build wealth through home ownership. Mortgage Right is all about providing competitive rates, a variety of loan products, and a multitude of resources for a seamless home buying experience. They treat their borrowers like family and are always looking to bring more happy homeowners under their roof. See more by visiting mortgageright.com/TNR today and start living. That's mortgageright.com/TNR. NMLS 2239 Equal Housing Lender.
Thanksgiving is here, and let the New York Butcher Shop be the place to get all of your holiday meal items. Their premium turkeys are fresh, free-range, and hormone-free. The New York Butcher Shop also has a wide selection of chef-prepared side items to help save you time in the kitchen. Pick up a bottle of wine, and your meal will be complete. Turkeys are selling fast, so place your order today. 2 locations to serve you, in Cahaba Heights and on Highway 119 in Greystone. The New York Butcher Shop. Rare quality, well-done service.
By now, you guys know how I feel about my fashion. However, did you know that I care about your fashion choices? Cargo shorts are out, flip-flops are only appropriate on the boat, and please throw away that stained t-shirt from college. You may be thinking, EG, that's all I own. What do I do? Here's what you do. Go to nextround.store and fill your cart with a wardrobe that is approved by me. Stock up on logo t-shirts, hoodies for football season, and hats for every day of the week. Trust me on this one and head over to nextround.store to get stocked up for this season.
Just because you've quit going to the gym, it doesn't mean that you have to quit gym altogether. Dunaway, that is. With our Next Round podcasts open 24/7, 365, you can access gym anytime you'd like. While you may have done away with your treadmill routine, our version of Dunaway is standing by ready to get you back to your absolute best. Find all that lovely Jimmy D-led content on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and in the podcast section of nextroundlive.com. This message is sponsored by Jimmy Crypto Inc. and Jimmy Crypto for President.
From the creators of The Next Round comes 2 new sites, CoverCrimson.com and TheBarnAuburn.com. 2 team sites with the same excitement and information-driven content that you get every day on The Next Round. Live daily shows, recorded shows, free of charge, plus premium content with insider information starting at just $1. And it's the perfect gift for the Alabama or Auburn fan in your family. CoverCrimson.com or TheBarnAuburn.com. Sign up today.
Happy football season. At The Next Round, we strive to make our loyal listeners feel like they're a part of the action all season long. My name is Emily Grace McWhorter, and I do that by bringing you along for any given Saturday in Auburn or Tuscaloosa. From pregame warm-ups, touchdowns that make you feel a part of the play, and everything in between, our goal is to make you feel like you're inside Bryant-Denny or Jordan-Hare. Follow along on our social media at Next Round Live on Instagram, X, and Facebook. Also, check out TheBarnAuburn.com and CoverCrimson.com while you're at it. Here's to fall Saturdays.
From the creators of The Next Round comes 2 new sites, CoverCrimson.com and TheBarnAuburn.com. 2 team sites with the same excitement and information-driven content that you get every day on The Next Round. Live daily shows, recorded shows, free of charge, plus premium content with insider information starting at just $1. And it's the perfect gift for the Alabama or Auburn fan in your family. CoverCrimson.com or TheBarnAuburn.com. Sign up today.
Follow Next Round Live on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. The social media team at Next Round Live is dedicated to giving you daily news conferences and practice video from UAB, Alabama, Auburn, and around college football. Follow and compare to the sites you used to visit. You'll also get the latest highlights and news from the Next Round Daily Show. Turn on the notifications so you don't miss a thing. Next Round Live on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. See more at nextroundlive.com.
It is Unlocked with Fox's Brock Huard, brought to you by our friends at MyBookie.ag. Big game in the NFL tonight with the Chargers hosting the Ravens. Right now, that game, 1.5, 51.5. You can get sides, totals, player props, which I love playing at MyBookie.ag. Check that out right now. Again,
What are you doing? What are you doing with that one tonight? Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead. I'm curious what you're doing.
I've got side and total up. But you know what? I'll go on. I've got 11 plays tonight at lanceslog.com. I am actually, and just for the listeners out there, if you're paying attention, I am playing the Chargers and the over tonight. And this Chargers defense has been lights out. Now, they did let up last week against Joe Burrow in the second half. I've just got a feeling we're going to get some points in this game.
Yep, I think so.
What do you know about Jesse? What do you know about Jesse Minter, the defense coordinator?
I know quite a bit about Jesse. Jesse and my little brother are still good friends. They were at Georgia State together, kind of resurrecting that thing. And then Jesse was able to kind of get in the door in Baltimore and then to Michigan. And obviously now, following Jim to LA, just done an awesome job. His dad, obviously a coaching legend, who did it for a lot of years at a really high level and kind of took University of Cincinnati and made them tough and edgy. And Minter's fun, man. He's a young guy that just commands respect. And that's not easy to do, whether that's in college or certainly at the NFL level. There's a lot of guys that try to kind of be fake tough or try to think they got to use a foul mouth or they got to do all these things. But the one thing Harbaugh does, man, and he's done it with Greg Roman through the years, all of his coordinators through the years, is he just kind of lets them be them and just as he is, his own unique kind of bird and really develops his coaches. And he's done an awesome job with Jesse. And I think I'm with that one. I think Lamar is going to do some things tonight. I think Pittsburgh opened the door and, they're confounding. I don't get it. Like whenever somebody slows down the Ravens and slows down Lamar, it just is like, that shouldn't happen. Alabama shouldn't go to Oklahoma and get shut down that way. Like that shouldn't happen. And I think in prime time tonight, Lamar usually likes these lights in LA. Yeah, I think I'm with you on the over. I
got to ask you this just because you brought up a foul mouth. And look, I've got a foul mouth. I'm trying to get a little bit better, but it's almost impossible. With that said, the worst language I've ever heard in a locker room was Kirby Smart when he was the defense coordinator at Alabama. What about for you as a player coming up through the ranks? Did Holmgren, because I think your Holmgren stories are pretty funny. Was his bad?
Yeah, he would kind of lose it at times, but it wasn't consistently. I didn't really have that. Dad was not a big cusser or swear. Tony Dungy never swore one time.
Not one time.
Not one time, Lance. Not one time. Not even close one time. Not even like, you son of a gun. Or, I remember Holmgren would be mic'd up sometimes, and you knew he was mic'd up because he would say this, like his mom would see some of the things after the fact and not be real pleased with it. So, when he was mic'd up, it was like, oh. Yeah, so I would say I'd say probably Mike, and he was not Kirby Smart. He was not some of these other environments. I was walking the track by our house in public high school, and I'm watching the high school practices like in August. I'm like, this is just gross. Like, you just don't need to do this. In fact, one of the kids on the team played baseball with Titus, a Mormon family, and he pulled me aside at one of the games. He's like, can I see a question? I'm like, yeah. He's like, does every football program and every football coach have to just swear? I'm like, nope, doesn't have to be that way. I mean, I watch Tony now. Tom Moore and some of his D coordinators didn't follow the same protocol, but Tony in 2 years raised his voice twice. And it was with teammates fighting. That was it. It was the only time he ever raised his voice, and you could hear a pin drop, Lance. Like the whole place stopped. And in fact, kind of foul-mouthed Tom Moore at times in our meeting was like, after Tony left, and it was the whole offense, he's like, you guys happy about that? You proud of yourselves? Making Coach Dungy have to raise his voice at you guys. So, no, I was not around a lot of it, but I certainly have heard a bunch of it.
Did any of the Huard boys, because look, I mean, there are worse things. Any of the Huard boys have a salty tongue?
Probably Damon of the three of us. Yeah, Damon, when there's a bad batch of wine that comes out.
Hey, where is my passing time? It's the holidays. We need another bottle sent this way, man.
Okay, all right, good to know. I'll let Big Bro know.
Yeah, we figure something out.
Hey, are your Rams done, Lance? What's going on?
Okay, yeah.
They looked cooked last night.
Well, man. let me bring up a couple of points on that game. And by the way, this is Unlocked with Fox's Brock Huard. We do it every single week. One of my absolute favorite hours of the week, brought to you by mybookie.ag. They will double the initial deposit. Code word next round, very important. Got to put that in at mybookie.ag. By the way, you can get the Rams at a wide open NFC West, sitting now at 5-6. If they would have won last night, they would be currently the 3 seed in the NFC. but they lose your Seahawks, the third seed right now. The Rams have already beaten them. They were 2-1 in the division. They had the one loss to Arizona. If they would have won last night, just a different feel altogether. They go straight down. They've got a 1st and goal in the red zone, and Kyron Williams, who has been so good, he fumbles. And at that point, I told my son, I was like, this is a problem. Like, we needed to be plus in turnovers. And we have got to score at will against this Eagles offense, which has become a beast. So, they go down, then they come back, and, Collinsworth brought it up. Hey, man, they ain't stopping this Rams offense right now. So the Rams, their first 2 drives, I think they went for 117 yards, and then the rest of the half, -6 yards. They couldn't convert on third downs. They've really been bad in the red zone. The offensive line has been a work in progress. At times, Stafford had no time last night. And I thought it was really a masterful job by Kellen Moore, kind of keeping that pressure off of Jalen Hurts and what they're doing with Saquon. And I said this earlier on the show, Brock. Not only do I think he's the MVP, and it always goes to a quarterback, but I think the New York Giants should be labeled as one of the dumbest organizations ever for not only – the guy was going to take less money to stay there, but not only would they not give him that, they let him go in division to Philadelphia.
Correct.
How good is that guy?
Correct. Yeah. He's phenomenal. He's not Adrian Peterson. I don't think there's many Adrian Petersons that have ever lived, but he's the closest facsimile to it today, where you've got all the speed and all the power, and you can do whatever, right? I mean, obviously, the king down there with Baltimore, who we'll get to watch tonight, like, he is power. Now he can still, when he gets it going and turns it over, he can get you the big play. But Saquon is just, he's just different. He's my MVP too. And Salk was just killing me today. He's like, he's not going to, if the season ended today, you and I are Heisman voters, if we were MVP voters, he is the MVP of this team.
But guess where my bookie.ag's got him right now? He is the 4th shortest odds. There are 3 guys in front of Saquon. And back to your point with Ashton Genty, what is Boise State without him? What is this Philadelphia team where, by the way, their culture was horrible last year?
Horrible.
Nick Sirianni is a tough guy to pull for me, but I do like this Eagles team altogether. But without Saquon, I just don't know how good they
totally
are.
Stabilizing. Just totally, when you are, and I remember, people have said this over the years, like, you get to the NFL level, right? It's the 1%ers, right? It is the best of the best athletes in the world. They do all the testing, all the combine. They sift through all this stuff. Your arm's got to be this long. You got to jump this high. You got to run this fast. And then when you have somebody that just plays that uniquely, right, with that kind of speed, you're like, how do you do that? How are you that unique? You're the 1% of the 1%ers. Yeah, and if he stays healthy and he runs for 2,000 yards, which he's on pace to do, I would sure hope that he's the MVP of the league. I'll say this about the Rams, and I'll say this about the NFC West, as you referenced, the Seahawks 6-5, and top it now would be the 3rd seed. The NFC West is the Big 12. It's absolutely the Big 12, and it's absolutely going to come down to the final weekend, right? It could be Seattle and LA. Arizona's going to be in the mix. We'll see if San Francisco's got enough bodies and what's up with Purdy's shoulder and everything. But none of these teams is going to win ever their next 6 games. I don't think any of them are going to win 4 of their next 6 games. 49ers got a brutal schedule. Rams don't have the easiest schedule. Arizona's probably got the best run. Seattle's got Green Bay and Minnesota back-to-back at home, where they've not been great. None of them are going to run away from anybody else. And it will. It will be unbelievably compelling theater that it will come down to the final weekend, more than likely, for either a 10-7 or 9-8 team to win the NFC West.
Yeah, you're right. I don't trust any of them. I love the fact that San Francisco continues to lose. Like, go on and get them out of the way, because I don't want them to get healthy. I still think, and I think you would agree, they have the best overall roster. Probably the worst roster is Arizona, but they're playing more team ball and playing really together up until yesterday. If the Rams could figure out this offensive line, I think their defensive line is so freaking good, Brock. Like, the job that Les Snead has done, going out, getting Kobe Turner last year out of Wake Forest, getting a Byron Young, and then this year getting the 2 guys from Florida State, Braden Fisk and Jared Verse. I mean, those 4 guys, it is relentless pressure. But I just don't trust the back end of the defense and the offensive line's a mess.
I know you've got your algorithms and your numbers, and I always appreciate you guys that do this really well and almost at I would say, a professional level. Like, I had a buddy that was at Atlantis in the Bahamas yesterday to watch Gonzaga, and he's like, "Hey, man, I'm here. I'm in the sports book. You got a bet for me?" I'm like, whatever the 49ers Packers line is, I would take the Packers times 100. Like, the 49ers are beat to heck. That is an impossible place to win. And he sent me the ticket later, and he was very thankful for that counsel and that conviction that I had. But I don't know if you figure this into your algorithms or not, but I think I would. And I think I'd be very curious over the years to see this, Lance. The one thing the Seahawks have ahead of the Rams, ahead of the 49ers, certainly ahead of the Cardinals right now, is they've got 8 to 9 guys that can play in their defensive line. That they're finally healthy. Byron Murphy missed stretches of the season. They had some other starts and stops. Boy Mafe missed some weeks. But right now, they are playing like 8 to 9 guys and rotating them through. And yesterday, they just swallowed Kyler Murray, right? You saw that even against the Rams. Stafford had to dirt like 7 or 8 balls against the Seahawks. They didn't sack them. They got him off the field over and over and over. You saw it for the first time in San Francisco, where they had lost 5 in a row. Like, they could not beat San Francisco. And it was the first time. It was like, whoa, okay, that looks different. They hit Christian McCaffrey, and they hit him, and they hit him, and they hit him. They kept James Conner to 7 rushes for 8 yards yesterday. And I'm telling you, when these guys only have to play half the time, Jaron Reed and Murphy and Leonard Williams and Hankins and Boye Mafe and Derek Hall and Dre Jones, like, they're just rotating through. And when you got those dogs healthy at the end of the year, see, I don't think LA's got 8 or 9 on their D-line. They got 4 or 5 that are amazing. I don't think San Francisco has that anymore, and certainly Arizona does not. So keep an eye on that. That would be the most.
Okay, Michael Hoyt, Bobby Brown, Tyler Davis. The Rams actually do have some depth there. I don't think the offensive line's good enough. But I agree with you. Like, outside of a franchise quarterback, the one thing I would want is that aggressive defensive line that can get to the quarterback, because you have absolutely no answer for that. And that's why, a team like Philadelphia, and I wanted to get to this question because everybody talks about Detroit far and away the best team in football, and they probably are. But the way Philadelphia is playing right now, Jalen Carter, the Rams put so much focus on double-teaming him last night that it opened up other guys to make plays. So I think Philadelphia's got one of those defensive lines too, all these Georgia 100%. Guys. But Philadelphia, 100%. Detroit right now, who wins that game?
Where's it played?
Well, right now
it would be played.
It would be played. It would be played in Ford Field right now.
Yeah. I think where that game would be played would be a touchdown swing, if not even more. If it is played in Detroit, in that madhouse, on that fast track, with all that speed and that offensive line and all that they can do, I think that would be a tough match. Now, them stopping the run would also be a little bit challenging. And Saquon, so take the over on whatever that is. Did you look at Salk? Gosh, this is my 5th Salk reference. I apologize, but he'll be happy about it. Have you looked at the point differential this year?
Yeah.
For the Detroit Lions?
The Detroit Lions is ridiculous. They're plus 177.
They're plus 177. They're double Philly.
Yeah.
I know some of that is Philly's slow start and everything else. Plus 177.
Hey, to put that in perspective, they're 10-1. The other 10-1 team in the league's KC. They're plus 52. And I want to get to KC in a minute and all these close games and another close game against Carolina Panthers yesterday. But yeah, the plus 177 is outlandish.
16-0 Patriots, we looked this up, we're like plus 315. So I don't know if they can get all the way there, but they keep doing this and demolishing people and winning by 20 points a game. You're going to get darn close to a plus 300 scoring differential in a league right now that, even compared to the Patriots day, it feels like in a league right now that does everything with change of rules, with scheduling, with salary cap, with the draft, with all of it. That's like, no, we will never have another 16-0 team. Like it's going to be, there's never going to be a team that is that good, plus 300 something. By the way, unlike the Patriots who did it that year, when we were looking at their numbers of the other 3 teams in the AFC East, they were horrible. Right at that point, the Jets were just a mess. Dolphins, they were all like negative 50, negative 70. The Lions are doing this in the toughest division. They're doing this in the Big Ten of the NFL with the Packers and Vikings and even a dangerous Bears team. So, hats off to the absolute dominance that the Lions have thrown out there week in and week out.
Yeah, I'm a complete dummy. I had the Colts plus points yesterday. I thought that they would show up. Richardson would play well. Didn't work out.
That's a dumb pick.
I get it.
You got to text me before some of these.
Okay.
Lance, that was just dumb.
What
better than that?
What is
Anthony Richardson? 11-29 yesterday.
I know.
Lance,
I know.
what are we doing?
I know. Okay, so through 11 games, plus 177. Is that more difficult, or being 10-1 through 11 games and only plus 52? in point differential. It seems like Kansas City and Pat Mahomes was on record yesterday saying, hey, we want some blowouts. Every one of their games comes down to it.
Correct. Now they get everybody's best shot, and Detroit is leaning that way, right? You kind of get to, and you build up this name and this brand and everything else, and Detroit's kind of getting there. Kansas City has lived there, and you're going to get the very best from every opposing fan base in every full throat on the road, and it's going to be a challenge. But Kansas City is also a little more flawed. I don't think they're as complete as Detroit. Take Patrick Mahomes. Who's the backup in Kansas City? It's not Henny anymore, right? Who's even the backup there?
Oh, I'll tell you in 1 sec. I can't believe I don't know this on the fly.
Put that guy in the game and tell me what the Kansas City Chiefs are this year.
Well, it's Carson Wentz. I'll tell you, when he played for the Rams last year in a backup role, I mean, he is one of the better quarterbacks in a one-game situation that can have a little flash.
He could in a one-game situation, but put him in one-score game after one-score game after one-score game after one-score game, they're 5-6 or 6-5.
Yeah, I agree.
So, that's the difference. They're pretty average on the perimeter, right? I think their O-line is good, not great. They're getting a little older. They're kind of like these 49ers that have played so many games and so much football and have played an extra season. The times when it comes to adding up all those playoff games we watched in Seattle, how that diminished that dynasty really quick. And it wasn't a dynasty. They went to 2 Super Bowls. But that defense was dynastic. And we watched, man, playoff run after playoff run after playoff run eventually takes a toll. Father Time plays a little catch-up, and I think we're seeing a little bit of that in Kansas City.
Always great stuff. Enjoy the Territorial Cup in Tucson. He is Fox's Brock Huard right here on Unlocked, brought to you by MyBookie.ag. Have a good one.
Love it, Lance. See you, bud.